Okay, so the first thing we do is we pull out some of the cables. So it will help in be able to pull out the components later on. So as you can see, I have these blue ones and the orange ones. These are the SATA cables. Yeah, you connect this to the ports on your drive. As you can see here, this one connects to here. It has a teeth there, so it's like an L, so you won't be able to connect it uh, wrongly. So this is how it should go in, and the other end plugs into the motherboard. Okay, so nowadays, still for the SSD drives, and these hard drives, the platter drives, you still need the SATA cables. But there's a new uh, storage drives being used right now. It's getting popular. It's the M.2 drives. It does away with all of the cables, including power, because you basically slot it in to the motherboard. So it actually cleans up everything. It saves space, and of course it improves the efficiency of the transfer because it doesn't have to travel through the cable. It directly plugs to the computer, so data transfer becomes really fast. So what I do, I actually can just take uh, can actually just remove the board directly later, but I mean just remove the board with the cable, but it would be better if we just remove the cable first. So most of this, there is a lock. So if you're gonna remove it, like I did this one, this higher cable, you have to press here to remove the lock and be able to take it off. So here it is, SATA cable for the one of the drives. Okay, this is the second one. I'm gonna reuse this, but these things really do take up space. As you can see, the wiring is really messy. There's really no option for you to make things look nice, because in the newer PCs, what they do is that they place the cables on the other side of the motherboard tray, but you can see my motherboard rests directly on the floor of this casing, so I really won't be able to slide them in there. You know, if they ever do try to, you know, freshen up this model, what they could do is actually just put a enclosure at the bottom and so you can run the cables down there. But you can't do it here because, you know, the motherboard needs to stick out of the casing to expose some of the ports here. So the motherboard allows you to have connect to the computer some other components, some like the USB port. This is a VGA port for in your old VGA displays. This is a DVI-D. Nowadays, it's, mostly you can use HDMI and DisplayPort, but back then they weren't that popular. But I needed an HDMI connector because I used to connect this to my TV. No, so most TVs just come with an HDMI port. Because this is my media server connected to the TV, so I can watch movies on a larger screen, because computer displays are actually very expensive as compared to televisions. So, uh, depending on your board, it would give you several options on what you can connect. So basically, these are just USB connectors, uh, uh, Ethernet port, and some of the ports for the audio. Basically, mic or line in, and an audio out for your speakers or headset. So again, uh, cable management here will be very difficult. but I'm still going to use it. uh, it still is a space saver, and so I can put it on top of my desktop and uh, save me some space. So again, I'm gonna remove some of the other cables. So there, I actually removed most of it already, so you can basically see the motherboard. You know, that is a motherboard. Now this has a built-in or soldered-in processor. You know, most computers have their motherboards, and you have a processor that you buy separately and you put them together. But this particular uh, motherboard already comes with a soldered-in processor. I used this because it was cheap back then. This has an Intel Atom. I think it's a dual core processor. I think it's around 1.5, or I can't remember. But it was enough for you to be able to play 1080p movies. I don't think it could play 4K or the Ultra HD, but back then, 4K wasn't that non-existent back then, I think. So I just went with 1080p movies, and this was enough. This was the cheapest that you can get, you know, and I didn't need enough power because I never used this for uh, gaming or other intensive tasks, except probably to browse the internet. Uh, so this actually was enough. I think this is the Asus D525 Mini ITX. I can't remember the exact model, but you will have to look for the one that says it has the 6 SATA ports. They don't make it anymore, I think. I'm not sure if they're still available, but even so, I won't be getting one because I need a computer that has more power. Basically, because I'm going to use it for software development, so I need the additional power. So this is again, and this is the SATA cable that I think this came with the case. So that's why it has the same sleeves. So I'm going to remove that. So as you can see right there, you have actually 6 SATA ports. That's where you connect your hard drives to. And then there's the PCIe for the graphics card. Normally, before the computer needed its own graphics card, is separate. But AMD started coming up with processors that had built-in uh, GPU chips. They're called IGPs, and even so, after that, most of the modern processors now do have built-in IGPs. So, or IGPs, you don't need to buy a separate video card. Otherwise, if their processor doesn't have an IGP, you will have to buy one, and you have to plug it here, the PCIe Express valve. Again, I'm gonna continue removing, so just bear with me. Before that, okay, I guess is uh, I have two slots here, two memory slots. I have two memory, sorry, I took two memory sticks installed. If I remember correctly, these are 4 GB each. They are DDR3, Kingston HyperX DD3 memory chips or memory sticks. You know, uh, I will probably discuss this in my next videos when I get my components in. But of course, the computer needs this. You know, so when you're building your own, you have to buy the memory as well. So you need the casing, the power supply, the motherboard, the processor, the memory sticks, and the hard drives. those are basically the components that you need. So I'm removing some of the power connectors. This supplies powers to the board. You know, so this is the 4-pin, but you can actually put it together for the ones that actually requires 8. And then I'm just gonna remove this one. This is the this is for the fan. You connect it to the uh, power supplies, fans, power supply. Uh, this is the fan controller. You can turn it off. You know, so you know you can control the fans to turn off. But I don't see why you would actually want to turn the fan off, because it helps with the ventilation. So we remove this. So this is the old power connectors. You know, they have 4 pins. So you have the negatives and the positives. You know, and for the here this part is the connector for your comes to the power. So I guess this is the headers for your connectors to the power in the front panel, because the front panel has some connectors for audio. It has connectors for for the power switch. So you have to pull this off. So actually, sorry, it actually says HD audio. So it connects the uh, front panel connectors for the audio to the board. So you can plug your headsets in the front panel and still be able to connect to your motherboard. Okay, so I actually zip tied this in, so I have to cut that out. But and then so those are some of the connectors I removed. There's one here. Again, I think this is the it's a fan header. So get the power direct, so the motherboard can control the speed of the fan. That's the reason for the fan headers. The BIOS, you can actually check, get into the BIOS and see the fans working and control the speeds there. And I think this is the connector for the power switches. So remove those. You will actually, when you're connecting this in the future, you would have to refer to your motherboard's documentation, because these are small. So although there are some markings, you really won't be able to understand them, what's there for. So you really need to open up the manual that comes with your motherboard. So as you can see, there's the motherboard, and the only connector left, or wirings connected left, is the main power of the board, which is I think this is 12 plus 6. So this is where the motherboard gets most of its power from. So that's the last